Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Attacking Football podcast. And today, we've got quite a special transfer podcast for all of you. Today, as usual, I'm joined with a regular on the channel. Scott, how are we doing, my friend?
I'm doing all good. How are you?
I'm really good, mate. I'm doing really, really good. Excited to be hosting for the first time. Unfortunately, our regular host, L.A. Matthews, is not here with us today, but as the Attacking Football podcast, on behalf of everyone here, we wish him a speedy recovery. He's feeling a little bit ill at the moment. We're joined by Dylan as well. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm living the dream. Living the dream.
Living the dream. And as always, the voice from the stars, Alfie. How are we doing today, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's great, mate. And our special guest, our transfer guru and journalist, Jacque. How are we doing? Glad to have you joining us today.
You. Appreciate the invite on as well.
No, not at all. Thank you for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And I think a really good way to start it off, apart from going to really in-depth on any story, let's go with the question, what do you think is the biggest transfer scoop you've ever had? What's the biggest story you think you've ever ran into?
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because I do find a transfer story sometimes you can put something out and then someone will at you and be like, oh no, this person said it like a week ago. It's difficult. I think we did all right with Kepa and Jarrad. I'm pretty sure we were one of the first to sort of say Spence was going to Spurs. This is like last summer.
Yeah.
Probably for me though, the one that sticks out is it was just a tweet because I was doing it kind of part time at the moment. I was just sort of doing it just to sort of tweet information out there, and I got the structure of how Darwin Núñez would be going to England, and that would be Mendes and then this other chap looking after him. So nothing like particularly groundbreaking, but I think that for me gave me the sort of buzz to do it, I suppose.
I think it put you on the map a little bit. I remember being really into like the Muppeteers and all that at the time. And I saw you breaking through the Darwin Núñez story and you got it absolutely spot on. And I think that brought myself and loads of other people's attention towards it.
Yeah, I followed you after it. Yeah, that's what kind of force.
Oh, wow, thank you. You do remember that. Yeah, no, yeah. I think that was not last summer, but the summer before. And I think it's sort of been, sort of just 2 years. But yeah, the Muppeteers, I don't really like the Muppeteers actually. It's James, isn't it?
Yeah, James is good.
Yeah,
we had him on the podcast as well. We had him on the podcast.
Did you?
We did. A couple of weeks ago now, I think. But yeah, moving on to any other stories. What do you think? We spoke about the Darwin Núñez story. Is there another story that perhaps sort of altered your career a little bit and maybe pushed you onto bigger opportunities? Or is it just sort of been a steady run of the mill? Like how in the life of a journalist, going with someone just tweeting things out just to give people information? What was the sort of story? What was the moment that just sort of transcended you in your career?
I was doing shift work at the Daily Star, and I think I had a colleague who worked there, and he put out an exclusive out saying, it was about, I don't know if you remember, well, he's still around, Diego Carlos going to Newcastle.
Yeah.
So how'd you do that? How'd you do a transfer story? And he goes, I went to spoke to his agent, and I just got that. And I remember, just for a hobby, I just spoke to, I pretty much, it's a bit stalkerish, I basically just followed every single agent on Twitter, and it sort of spawned from there, really. Then after a few months of doing it, I thought, well, I should probably try and monetize this a little bit. And in the back of my mind, I probably again the Núñez one. Last summer it wasn't the best window. January last summer was okay. But what you do find is, especially because obviously I'm not Romano or Ornstein or anything like that. So when you do get stuff right, what can tend to happen is because obviously when they all say it, you almost get. That they'll come over the top of you. Do you know what I mean? And
it just sort of swallows you up, little drowns out the noise.
Yeah, because they'll come and so you don't always get the sort of acclaim for it. But if you get it wrong, obviously people will notice. It's
straight away.
Absolutely, it's not one. This is an industry. If you make a mistake, and I've made plenty of mistakes, it's not really your bosses who tell you off. It's the general public who will say this is wrong. And I've made some howlers and stuff. We just got to learn from it, I find
it really interesting you mentioned like just it being almost stalkerish. Dylan, I know you do little bits of that as well, breaking stories for us regularly on the Attacking Football site. What do you find it similar, like it being very stalkerish, or?
It does kind of end up being stalkerish with the way you kind of have to contact people within the industry, because some people don't want to talk. Jack, you'll know the same. Some people don't want to talk. Some people don't want to speak information about their clients. And sometimes when you really want the story, you end up sending, well, I do, unfortunately, as well. I end up sending 3-4 messages to people and they don't reply.
Yeah.
Then you might get that one reply off that person. But on the kind of topic of Jack's stories, I remember another one of the 4 stories that you had really solid information on for a long time was Andre from Fluminense.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
And on the topic of him, he is still kind of due to kind of leave Fluminense. It's been happening for a while. Do you see that transfer happening this summer with him perhaps going to Fulham?
It's one that I've really sort of invested in. I really hope it does happen because I'm pretty sure I'd be like sort of relatively front of that. Possibly Fulham, but it's possibly Fulham. But it's nothing I've heard recently. We did a story the other week saying Fulham is still there, but the impression I got wasn't particularly like it was particularly strong or anything. It was a real shame because he almost went to Liverpool, I think. And then you're right, it was Fulham over January. It was on, then it was off again, and then I think even Man United were linked at one point, albeit quite actively. I don't know. So yeah, I think he wants a Premier League move, and his club would like to, because obviously Premier League's rich. So then I saw something about AC Milan today, but I haven't followed that up at all. I haven't followed up about him. I mean, I like him at Newcastle personally, but we'll have to see. Yeah,
I find it really interesting. You mentioned like you're investing in it. Like we all here, like we produce articles, we break stories, some of us even make videos. Do you have that sort of emotional investment like that we do in our sort of content that you do with your stories in the transfers, hoping that it's going to happen? So like you mentioned, like Andre to Fulham, you hope that happens, but is that like across the board? Is it you have like almost babies? Do you have a favourite child or two?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of being selfish, because obviously, not being like a huge size or anything, you have to sort of put 6 months work in to build I think you mentioned it as well, about building like a relationship, and 9 times out of 10 people won't reply to you. It's still the case, but it takes sort of 6 months for that relationship to be built, in which and it's only sort of 2 or 3 who will message me first. So I have to sort of go to them at the right time. I have to be very lucky with your timing, kind of thing. Yeah. And so yeah, just in terms of selfishly, for me to be the first one to it, because all reporters can say that they don't care about it, but they do care about it. They all want to be the first one to the story. They want to be the first one to say it. And so yeah, another one could be hopefully sort of Summerville might be able to get something on that. I'm not entirely sure. Andre could be another kind of thing. So just in the sense of being the first, basically, yeah, it does well. It's obviously a good feeling to have. But other than that, no.
I find that, that's interesting. It's almost like a little bit of an ego boost as well, surely, just a little one.
But yeah, I think absolutely. I think you can get sucked into that a little bit on Twitter, can't you?
Twitter's the place where it's always going to happen.
Yeah, Twitter's the worst place.
Could just realise it's not real life and sort of withdraw from it. But yeah, you can get really sucked up into it, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%.
You just mentioned Summerville. I know a couple of weeks back you said that Liverpool still remain interested. Is that still the case?
No, unfortunately not. No, they're not. There was a report saying they weren't involved, and then we asked about it, and he said no, they're still there, kind of thing. And then I think they actually did pull away about a week ago, but I just sort of left it. It's just one of those where it's like, I'm just waiting for something else to come. But I think you probably see likes of Ben Jacobs say that now, and I don't know if Fab's reported the same thing. But yeah, Liverpool and Summerville, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be a goer, unfortunately.
Do you have a feeling about why that would be the case? I know Michael Edwards has come into the club this summer, changing the structure of the club quite significantly. It used to be Jurgen Klopp as the man of the house. Now there's a new man in town. Do you think that's changed our dynamic? And do you think that's the reason they pulled out?
I wish I had a sort of a direct line to that and sort of know the actual dynamics and stuff. But I don't. I think Summerville, the question marks around him, and especially for Newcastle as well, is because he's predominantly played on on the left for Leeds, and you've got these clubs looking for someone on the right. Although he can play, I think he played in the under-23s on the right side. So that would be my guess, and then also sort of quantifying the level up from the Championship to the Premier League. How big a jump is it? For some players like Dwight Gale, it was like it's a massive thing. They can get 30 goals in the Championship, but in the Premier League, it wasn't so good.
Doesn't exactly translate.
Yeah.
You're a Newcastle fan, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm not a very good fan, I have to admit. I don't really go to games, and I'm the sort of one that if we start losing 2-0, I'll turn it off.
To be honest with you, I wish I was like that. Honestly, I wish I was like that. But on Newcastle, there's a bit of, I'd call it controversy at the minute with the sale of one of the players. Well, proposed sale of one of the players, Yankuba Minte.
Yeah.
I know he's never played I don't think he's ever played a minute for Newcastle. Very successful for Feyenoord last season under Arne Slot. How do you feel about Newcastle selling a player of his potential at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think he got 15 goal contributions in the Dutch league last season under Feyenoord. So for us, we it's always, you don't want to see young players go. You just don't know. One of the worst things that can happen in football is you set up a young player and they go on to thrive. Like we sold Ivan Toney for half £500,000, and it's not nice when they go on and they do a fantastic.
They flourish,
They flourish, and so yeah, who knows what happened? Maybe with a buyback clause. I think it's just about them getting the money in for PSR, and because it's a homegrown talent. I'm not entirely sure, and that could be the reason why. But I suppose I haven't watched him play. I can't pretend to have watched loads of Dutch football last season and invested time into it, so I don't know. I suppose what would matter is like who we'd end up with, and so the answer of that would be in 6 months' time. If he does turn out to be a world beater and we're stuck with, or we're linked to Calvert-Lewin recently and stuff, I don't think it's going to be like a great outcome. But hopefully, I don't know. I'm sure we'll get the right players in, because Newcastle fans, we do have to realise we were very, very against Anthony Gordon at the time. We thought it'd been an awful transfer. We were just like, what are you doing? And I think it was probably throughout the season probably our best player, I'd say.
100%, yeah. And he's probably.
I was one of those people looking at the fee that Newcastle paid for Gordon, and I was like, why are they paying that much? And even when Chelsea bid like 50 million, I was like, why are they paying that much? And he's proven me wrong. So
yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone expected it. I think he just had a bit of a bad reputation, but he's been able to channel that kind of, I don't know, tenacity into something quite special, and hopefully we'll see more of him. Next season he'll be able to get. I think he got 20 goal contributions in the Premier League last season. I think so. Not bad going for that price, I'd say.
Especially for a player of his age. Are Newcastle, would they have to sell a big player this summer? There's been a lot of talk about Bruno G or possibly Isak leaving. What's the situation with their PSR? Like, do you think one of them could leave, or too early to say at this time?
I think if Isaac's been on record to say he doesn't want to go, and it seemed quite genuine. I'm always quite sceptical about football players, and you could Bruno Guimaraes, you're 27 next year, and you're a club who's missed out on the Champions League. I think, for my money, if a Man City pushed or an Arsenal pushed for Guimaraes, I think he'd want to go. I think that's just football. But with Isaac, he seems. I think it'd be more down to the player of their quality. Looking to go rather than us needing to sell. I don't think we need to bring in 100 million to abide by PSR. I think it's sort of around 20, 30, more than 100. So, yeah, I still think Guimaraes could go. I'd say it just depends what happens. His release clause is expired after tonight. So, if an offer of 80 million came in and he asked to go, then I don't think they can say no, really. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting you mentioning, and there's been a mention so far of PSR. And earlier you made a tweet about the sort of farcical element of the Premier League at the moment, and how clubs are almost swapping these sort of 18-year-old academy players, these homegrown players, for rather ludicrous fees. What's your sort of take on that more generally?
Yeah, I think with the Premier League, you can. I don't buy into conspiratorial things at all. I don't, and I'm very much aligned to the Premier League about a lot of things in terms of Man City, but I just felt the whole situation around, and people will disagree with it, Aston Villa, to be in a situation where a club has managed to broken through into Europe, and their highest paid players on £150,000 a week, minuscule by other, in comparison to other clubs, and for them have to sell their best players. I just think whatever that situation is, that formula cannot be right. And I'm not saying that clubs should be allowed to sell players for inflamed prices to cook the books, but I just sort of blame the Premier League for that situation being able to transpire, and I kind of see why they would do it. So yeah, I just think there needs to be balance, and I think the sort of tweet is just. I just sort of wish football was a bit more simpler than it is.
Yeah.
I just find it very heavy nowadays. I think whereas before you could be able to enjoy a transfer story or just watch football, and now there's so much. It's so heavier, and maybe just too complex for me or whatever, but I just find it so, hey, I just want to be able to enjoy it. And then you're sort of reading about, new rules and stuff and cooking the book. So yeah, I do stand by the tweet, but it's not because I think that, there shouldn't be any sort of financial enforcement. There definitely should be, but they just go. I think the Premier League have been very heavy-handed, and they do go about things the wrong way, and it can benefit the top six, where it doesn't benefit the other sort of 14 clubs at times.
So you're kind of, yeah. What are we?
I think people are forgetting the fact with these fees, they're also paying to have a homegrown player as well come into their team. These inflated fees for these type of players have kind of been around for ages. Like, look at Danny Drinkwater when he joined Chelsea from Leicester. That was kind of a pretty much inflated fee because Chelsea needed that homegrown player in their squad.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the Man City keeper, but there's a reason he's there. He's never played a game in about 5 years, and they keep giving him a new contract. So there's a little bit of, the whole situation can be a bit silly, really. It's about balance, like of anything. The Premier League needs to find a situation where you can compete. It's a relatively same playing field, although you're never going to have a complete balance. But also, you're not impeding clubs like Aston Villa if they do want to progress. But there's points for and against, I suppose. Yeah,
it's more the rules in the current situation. They are like, it would be a much bigger shame for, as you said, Villa to have to sell Watkins, as opposed to, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with what Villa done within the current set of rules. Them rules are there to be kind of, I wouldn't say abused, but them rules are there to be taken advantage of in terms of selling Kellyman for 20 million to Chelsea. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the rules around PSR, as you said, need to change so that the likes of Watkins don't need to be sold for, because he's that franchise player right now, effectively. And for them to have to possibly sell him this summer just to appease the rules is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jacob Ramsey's one that they need to sell and stuff. And so the situation, I just feel it's just, you can see why Everton's, Aston Villa's can get frustrated. I do acknowledge with Newcastle and the source of our owners and stuff that there's a little bit less sympathy, and I entirely acknowledge that. But it's particularly with the likes of Aston Villa, I do have sympathy for them. And I can see why you'd be frustrated, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. We're focusing a lot on the clubs who are selling players a lot at the moment, speaking about Aston Villa being forced to sell players, Everton as well being threatened with administration. Let's turn our heads to a club who are looking at buying almost every player on the market, it seems, in the form of Chelsea Football Club, who have seemingly been linked to 101 players at the moment on even their winger position. So, Jack, what do you know about Chelsea at the moment, in particular their wingers?
Particularly their wingers. We did a story today about John. Again, it wasn't anything new. It's just information we heard. It's all confirmed about Jonathan David, and also the Barcelona lad as well. It was put to us about Michael Elise, but again, I just because I saw that we did a story about Elise and him wanting more game time and him asking for a huge wage. And even when I put it out, and I saw a report elsewhere saying, he wanted good development and stuff like that. So you just don't know even what you put out is, if that comes from a club, if that's going to be 100% on the money. But I've always found Chelsea quite funny, and in this sort of new era they've got. And, the audacity, and it's not funny, but, the audacity of this hotel thing is just actually, I just find it absolutely incredible.
Wait, what's the hotel thing?
They sold their own hotel to themselves.
Did they?
Yeah, they sold their own
account to another account.
Yeah.
Only Chelsea would do something like that.
Oh, that's laughable.
But look, and again, as I just said previously, that's legal per the current rules in place. So they haven't really done anything wrong. It's just the fact that the rules are so ridiculous.
Yeah, just manipulating it, taking advantage. It's just
a club can sell a hotel to themselves, but look, it is what it is.
And again, coming back to you, Jack, like talking about the big six clubs can get away with it. Seems to be that the top six can sort of operate within the grey. They can sort of exist in that sort of area, but clubs like Aston Villa try and sort of reach into Europe. They're forced to sell an Ollie Watkins. They're forced to sell a Jacob Ramsey. Everton are threatening administration. So completely get where you're going with it.
Yeah, you can see why they were frustrated, and for Chelsea to do something. I mean, before it was the contracts, and it's kind of like, well, the amortization, and your players up there to 20, 35 and stuff crazy. It moves on that far and stuff, and it's just the absolute audacity of it. I find quite funny. But
What's the craziest thing you've heard at Chelsea with the new regime? Is there something just absolutely bonkers?
Well, nothing particularly with Chelsea. I remember there are things which happen that don't go in the public domain, which are just sort of kept out because there's no way, if you're a club, if you're not necessarily me, but if you're a reporter, club covering a club, you could, when these reporters retire, there's so much stuff that they just haven't put out because it would tarnish their relationship with a club. There's a player brought into a Premier League club who actually broke his leg and went for a medical and they didn't find the broken leg. But with regard to Chelsea, nothing off the top of my head. But I think when I've sort of done with this in a few years or whenever it'll be, I'm sort of we share a bit more kind of thing on that.
I kind of just want to come back to the Chelsea wingers because Chris in our chat has asked about, is Summerville to Chelsea a possibility?
It's not a name I've heard with Chelsea. Summerville, we did about 2 months ago from his side saying, I'll say it on video, it's from his side saying Newcastle, Aston Villa, the mind of them, AC Milan, Liverpool. But they were the names, and then I think it was those three. Anyway, Liverpool, Newcastle, AC Milan have been there a little bit as well. But I know Chelsea have been linked, but it's not saying it's not true. It's just not something I've heard from the player side, to be honest. I don't know who else is saying it. Brighton, I saw that he's been linked to Brighton by Romano recently. Again, it's just I probably just need to ask up on that because I haven't spoken to him for about 10 days, 2 weeks or so, and that's quite new as well. So
we've had a heavy focus so far on wingers on the show, and I think I'm going to continue it a little bit because we had Elise, we've had Summerville. Let's talk about Pedro Neto being linked to Arsenal. That was an exclusive which you guys came out with. What can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, no, that's my colleague Steve Kay. It's nothing I know about. I'd love to say I do. He's sort of on the beat with Arsenal and that, so he gets stories around that. It's not something I'm aware of. I think the story because I subbed the work. I think it's something about Arsenal and I have like an internal assessment about his injury record or something of that regard. But Arteta is a big fan of his as well. It is quite interesting with certain windows. You do find that there is like a position which sort of takes precedent, and this summer seems to be the right wing. A lot of clubs are after wingers. And last summer, I think it was central midfielders. But everyone's going nuts.
Everyone wanted midfielders.
And so there's a lot of right wingers who could leave. But I think there's usually we'll probably see a couple of surprises as well.
Interesting that you mentioned like trends in the in transfers. We see trends in football. So we had a trend of like 2 strikers being up front. Nowadays, we've got a trend of more positional style football. And at some point, we'll probably see a counter revolution and moving to more relationism in football. How do you think, what's the current trend in the market? If you were looking in the next 5-10 years, what do you predict the transfer market to look like?
In terms of finances and stuff like that, I think that we've reached a point where it will probably maybe start to reduce, and I think there's going to be more. I think they'll throw out more legislation stuff, and it won't work. But then we'll find a sort of happy medium. I don't think it'll be as crazy in 10, 20 years' time. That's just a pure guess. And I'm sure there's going to be some sort of new fads. Like we remember back in the I sound old, but back in the 90s, I guess, early 2000s, you had the central defender who was like really tall, brutish, won a load of headers and had like leadership qualities, whereas now people like ball playing defenders, etc. Inverted wingers is quite common nowadays rather than sort of being an outright winger. So I'm not entirely sure what that'll be, but I'm sure football is, as you say, ever evolving, and we'll find something absolutely crazy like I don't know, maybe like centre back like strikers. I have no idea really.
Goalkeepers in midfield.
Yeah, I mean that came to my head, but then you kind of think, well, Edison's sort of like that. So we've gone past.
I've always said for a couple of months now, put Onana in midfield for United, and he'd be the best midfielder. But on the topic of United and moving away from wingers, you done a story probably not even a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half ago now, about Branthwaite and United. do you think United are going to come back in with another bid? And let's say if that bid wasn't accepted by Everton, which, to be honest, I don't see it being accepted by Everton, despite the fact they need money. Do you think Manchester United actually will walk away from that deal?
Yeah, but the way it was put to me was that it's going to be a lot of posturing in the media, and eventually it'll get done for around 55 plus 10 or something like that. And there's going to be, but I think a lot of people sort of cottoned onto that as well. There seems to be a lot. Interesting, the Ornstein story was 35, but then the BBC reported that as 10 million more. They said, I think he did 35, they did 45. So, maybe 10 million more might do it. I certainly believe that he is the club's major target for that side. But if Everton, but I don't think Everton are going to sort of be bullied by United anyway. So I don't know, 50-50, but again, the way it's put to me, it will eventually happen. And at least he is like their main target, because Tabido's been his name has been chucked around in Euro and stuff, but I think Jarrad is like the one they want in us one, certainly.
I think it's really important that United sort of put their foot down in the market and not allow Everton to bully them and to try and bully Everton. We've spoken about before about United tax, about sort of Ed Woodward's mishandling of the transfer market, about the Glazers mishandling the transfer market. How important do you think it is when like Todd Bowley came on the scene and United's new owners and Sergeant Ratcliffe and co coming onto the scene? How important is them to get a grasp of the market and to make sure they'd go about it sensibly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think using example, my own club, Newcastle, we had the owners and everyone was saying we're the richest club in the world. And obviously that's not the best label to have when you're trying to sort of negotiate. You want people to you want your reputation to improve and you want to come across as shrewd. And so in us, you're absolutely right. They're going to be, mindful of that, and they're going to want to make sure that they're not going to be spending, no offense to Anthony, or 100 million on Anthony, or giving Casemiro £300,000 a week and stuff. And I think that reputation has to change, and that it may take some maybe some deals not getting through and stuff like that. And it takes time to do. So yeah, it's very, very important. And Chelsea's new ownership have built up a reputation, which is, I'd probably say, is quite negative for them, really. And now they're going to have to sort of backtrack on that. So yeah, for Ineos, it's their first window. Like properly in the driver's seat and stuff. So it's very important that they sort of set a precedent and they don't get the sort of Man United tax, as it were. Because the Woodward era was just, some of the purchases you made and the contracts have just been, obscene, and no other club would have made that, I don't think, So yeah.
When you're talking about Newcastle having the moniker, the richest team in the world, Chelsea earned the moniker Blue £1 billion bottle jobs from Gary Neville. So it doesn't exactly speak volumes about that, but they are trying to change it. They sort of bulked. You reported that Chelsea were put off by the sort of wages Elise was asking for.
I think they were.
Yeah.
That's one of those that I think Chelsea have a certain. Jack will probably know more. Chelsea have a certain structure inside the club. I don't know. I don't think it's that 25. They don't sign players over 25. That was initially their thing. But they seem to have a wage structure of not going over 200 grand, which is...
Yeah, it's what we reported as well. But again, it's that side. But then there's another report who also said it was because Bayern Munich were a better option for him. So sometimes it's just sometimes in the middle, and you'll never really get the truth, the absolute empirical truth, because everything, even if Chelsea briefs something to a reporter and they release it, it's always in Chelsea's favour, really, isn't it, or their interpretation of the matter. So it's always spun. It makes football reporting incredibly difficult to find what's actually correct, I think.
I mean, I'm going to circle back once more onto United, because myself and I think there's two other United fans in here, I think I'm going to get it out of the way nice and early. What does United's transfer window look like from here? Jarrad Branthwaite seems to be the sort of main target at the moment. Where do you see it spanning from here?
Yeah, I think they get him wrapped up, and then I think obviously you've got a lot of players who need to be moved on. Greenwood, Casemiro, I just can't foresee anyone coming in for Anthony. Xerxes been heavily linked as well. That's a shame. Yeah, I just don't see. I don't know, maybe Juventus or something like that. But I think Ineos want to sort of get Premier League experience, but keep the sort of age down and basically turn it on its head. Harry Kane. Ten Hag really wanted Harry Kane last summer, but it just didn't happen. I think that would be probably at this point a bit of a silly move, really.
Would you say
I
there's a
think Boylan
chance?
looks amazing, to be honest. Sorry.
Yeah. Would you say there's a chance of Kane to United?
If Bayern need to sell and they want, no, they're starting a bit of an overhaul now, aren't they? So again, the wages he'd ask, it'd be kind of. I don't know if Finos would be willing to sort of do that. I'm not sure. It just could be a disaster, another expensive disaster, really, couldn't it? So yeah, I think Branthwaite, and then looking at the sales and just what they can do there. I think the priority will be, getting replacing Casemiro. And I think Eriksen's going to go, and then obviously you need Martial's gone. So Xerxes sounds about right to me. Xerxes. I'm always dubious of Man United being linked to players in the Portuguese league. While Neves has been linked quite a lot, I can't see them spending 120 million euros on him.
Why are you quite sceptical about Portuguese league and United in general?
I think Mendes has quite a big influence on some of the outlets over there, and I think a lot of the outlets will happily oblige in saying, for his clients, making a lot of stories linking big clubs such as United to him. Sometimes they are true, but sometimes I just think it's a lot of hot air that gets blown over there sometimes.
So would you be quite skeptical, about the idea of João Neves moving to Manchester United this summer then?
I'd say so, yeah. Lack of Premier League experience and the price that he didn't, he asked for 100, I think it's 120. So yeah, I'd be skeptical of that. Certainly a defensive midfielder. And I think there's the Sporting, saying that, I say that, but he's not a Mendes client, but there's the Sporting CP midfielder who scored against England recently.
Oh, Huijmland. I think that's how I say his name, right?
Huijmland,
Yeah, Huijmland, sorry.
Morten Huijmland.
Yes.
I think he's 70, 80 million, I think. Release clause.
70, 80, yeah.
Yeah.
Euros. I suppose it's half the price of Neves, isn't it? So
yeah.
But he looks quite good. So someone like that, perhaps, yeah. But yeah, no, I think there's been a lot of, for United as well, they've had to sort of deal with a lot recently. Just the managerial thing, and it looks like they're revamping their coaching staff as well. So and then the selling of players as well. So I'm sure there are some tentative links, but it's just about getting them in and persuading them to come as well.
Well, I think we've appeased the 3 United fans on the podcast. Shall we go over and say hello to Scott and talk about Liverpool for a quick second? But also what not to talk about with Liverpool. There's been a distinct lack of links. We've just talked about Summerville and that sort of connection disappearing. Do you have anything for us on Liverpool, Jack, or is it pretty quite dry over there?
It's pretty quite dry over there, which is probably a good thing for the club. It's not always the best thing to have your club's name sort of attached to names, and I think it's better as a fan to have your club kind of just not really heavily linked and stuff and going about their business quietly. But obviously, they do need to sort of bring players in, don't they? And I think Salah will be in his last year, but they're going to make sure that that's the right player, the right replacement, whoever that might be. I don't know what the sort of situation is with Nunes because another coach could get him to score more goals. I don't know. Liverpool fans seem quite polarised on him really about how he's actually a good player, but there's one that can't really, he's not amazing at finishing. But no, not much from Liverpool at the moment. And to be honest, I have to say, it's with sources, they can be interchanging, and people can move from one job to another. And they can move out of positions, and obviously that has a knock-on effect on you because of the information that they may get. So that's been a little bit the case of me and Liverpool at the moment. But maybe in a couple of years I'll have a bit more on that.
So before we go circle back to that sort of changing job sort of thing, Scott, how do you feel about that? The lack of noise. Is that something you're happy about? Or would you, as a sort of football enthusiast, like a little bit of noise to keep you going?
See, I think based on reports I've been seeing, I think the focus is more on seeing the contract talks with Van Dijk, Trent and even Salah to just get another extension on that. I think that's the main focus at the moment from what I've been seeing. So I think they want to secure Van Dijk and Trent, and maybe after talks with them, maybe then they'll start moving because then they'll know more about what they could need.
I mean, they've been linked away like the Van Dijks, the Salahs, the Alissons even. And I mean, Dylan, yourself, you've been quite strong in your defending of Alisson staying at Liverpool and sort of warning about any links away.
No, he's not going anywhere. There was obviously Saudi talk and Saudi links, but you'll see over the next couple of months, I think probably every top player in the Premier League is going to be linked to Saudi. And I'd imagine the only two that have a big chance are probably Ederson and Casemiro. I'm sure Jack has heard the same. So yeah, but no, I don't think Alisson's going anywhere.
I'm assuming that's Ederson from City and not from Atlanta.
Yeah, no, Ederson from City. I think Ederson from Atlanta, you never know. He could go to Liverpool. But yeah, Ederson from City, I'd say we'll go to Saudi more.
I mean, Scott, just speculation more than anything, but who would you like? What positions would you like to focus on in Liverpool this summer?
See,
you can bring anyone in.
I think we need another centre-back, and I think we need a left-back. And I think being the club that we are, it'd probably be smart if we got a player who can play both of them positions. I think that all the centre-backs we've been linked to can play left-back. We've been linked to Hincapi from Leverkusen, Calafiori from Bologna, I think Pacho of Frankfurt, and I think all three of them are able to play centre-back and left-back.
Interesting. Yeah. And then interesting you mentioned Calafiori, where the Euros is going on, I think, as we speak. I don't know what games are on. I think Italy are playing. Coincidentally, I think Italy are playing. But Jack, which is the player at the Euros who you think, I mean, we saw it a couple of times with some players last tournament. Players have a good tournament, transfer exposure in them increases. Is there a player you've been watching so far that you could see something happening with that?
Nothing springs out. Is it Calafiori, the one you
Calafiori, yeah.
Yeah, and the guy who scored against England, who's been linked to Man United, could be one. I'm always quite dubious of players who do quite well at tournaments because I always think it might be like before your time, but El Hadj Diouf, he had like a really, really, really good World Cup.
A little bit before my time, yeah.
And then, before your time, fair enough. He basically had a really, really good tournament for Senegal, I think it was, and then Liverpool signed him and he was like the worst player in the world. So it's really hard. You just need like a few games, really, isn't it? And they can fit a certain system at a nation where it just doesn't really translate. So, but no, nothing at the moment. But I think it could sort of maybe. I don't think we'll win it now. I was kind of very confident England would win it, and then obviously watching us play, and I'm like, oh, actually, maybe not. But it'd be nice to see Bellingham do well.
It would be nice to see Bellingham do well.
There was a story you broke last week about David Carmel from Porto.
Oh yeah.
He was linked to either it was Wolves or West Ham, I think you reported. Do you think that could be a replacement for Max Kilman if Wolves go in? Because Newcastle are linked strongly to Max Kilman.
I don't think he's that good to do that. He was at Olympiacos last season. He did quite well. He'll probably end up back in. I think it was Leicester and Wolves, wasn't it?
Yeah, Leicester Wolves.
It was. It's basically I think he'd probably end up back in Porto or something like that. I'm quite friendly with his agent, and I've spoken to him for a long time. But he was sort of like, I tried to get more, but I didn't get any more than what was already out there, kind of thing. But I don't think because he was actually linked to Liverpool, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
It was really, really good, and I think he had like a nasty injury or something, or maybe he just had his career just took a bit of a dive. But then he went to Olympiacos, and it's gone up a little bit. I think he'd be more of a squad player at something like Leicester and Wolves. Maybe that's a bit unfair. I don't know. I don't think it'd be like, it'd be like 12 million euro for him anyway.
Yeah, it's very cheap. Yeah, because Kilman is highly rated. I know United have Kilman on a list internally, but it does look like he's going to join Newcastle at this moment in time. I don't know. I don't think they have actually. I think was it Jay Percy said they've sent a bid.
Yeah, the Midlands reporter said we offered cash plus, Elliot Anderson for Kilman, who's our he's sort of a winger / attacking midfielder kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's okay. He's quite young, but it was rejected. But yeah, he's a very good player. I think I don't think Carmo would be as good as Kilman by any measure.
No, I don't think so.
Go on, Dylan.
No, I was going to say I was going to agree with him. I said I don't think he would be either as good as Kilman. Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely.
We've started a bit of a plunge overseas. We've gone over to Porto, Olympiacos was mentioned as well. Let's do a full dive and let's talk about a club I am representing right now, Real Madrid, and a man who's linked to a multitude of clubs, including United, Paris Saint-Germain and Liverpool, Lenny Yoro. How do you see that deal sort of panning out? At the moment, it's strongly linked to Real Madrid. Seems to be his favourite option. Do you see a chance for United, Liverpool, PSG to sneak in? What do you think, Jack?
It seems to be. I think there's quite a really reliable Man City journalist. I can't remember her first name. Is it Maria? But she said that she sort of chosen Real Madrid over those clubs. My boss, Robin Barriner, is like a league and expert, and he said that he's really, really good. But I don't know. I think he's only 18 years old, isn't he?
He's so young. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so good, so young. So,
I really do rate Lenny Yoro.
But no, I don't know. I imagine, if you're any player in the world and Real Madrid come calling, it's very hard to say no, isn't it? It's like literally the most prestigious club in the world. Well, I know you're United fans, you might disagree, and Liverpool fans might disagrray, but it's very hard to say no. So,
we've been rejected by many players that we've been linked to. They've gone to Real Madrid instead. So,
Bellingham's
You've got a whole list.
Tchouaméni as well.
It's the weather. Nothing else. It's just the weather. Like.
Just the weather.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. Just the weather. You get the sunbathe in Madrid. You don't get the sunbathe in Manchester. That's it.
It's an interesting idea though, because we're talking about like what's pulling players towards certain clubs nowadays, and players seemingly are becoming more and more intelligent. I look at the Elise deal. Elise sort of allowed clubs to go to Palace instead of talking to him first, so we could sort of scout out his options. What do you see Jacque as players looking for most in their like preferred destinations nowadays? Is it, as Dylan said, the weather, or is it like is it the club they're going to, the prestige of the club, the playing time, the wages, the potential pathways for young players? What do you think?
I do think Southern American players do struggle with weather in England. I think that can be a bit of a factor. With that, we're going to be a bit boring here, but I literally just think it's a bit of a multitude of everything.
Yeah.
I think to play for a prestigious club, to be in the Champions League, and if you're a professional player, that's they want that. And I think the wage has to be competitive there. And regardless of where you are, I think it has to be. So, I know it's a lot of money for us, but if you're a player on 70,000 a week and all your colleagues are on, 200,000 a week, then you feel a bit out, kind of thing. So, I think it varies. Obviously, different players, different personalities and stuff. But I also think that we maybe as fans are a little bit too harsh on when players make the decision to go to somewhere with money. And I think Caicedo choosing Chelsea, and it's possible he was offered more money there, but the guy was from Ecuador. He's got a big family and stuff. And I think, I just feel like can't complain about how anyone makes their money, if they want to go and do that and they want to choose Chelsea over maybe somewhere that arguably could have been a bit more prestigious or whatever. If that's an argument, then
it's like Mikhailo Mudryk as well. When he chose Chelsea, when he went to Chelsea over Arsenal, he'd been posting on a story on Instagram about Arsenal for months and chose Chelsea. And it seemingly looks like that was because of wages and because the transfer fee. And at the end of the day, you have to provide for those around you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing wrong if you want to go and you have the opportunity to make more money. And a guy from Ukraine or a guy from Ecuador has no allegiance to Liverpool Football Club or whoever it may be. They're just there because they want to play at the highest level and earn the most money. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
There is when you talk about the likes of Euro and everything like that, and then you go back to the likes of United. I always viewed Euro as more likely to go to Liverpool if he wasn't to choose Madrid, because there is a genuine reputation for United in the market. I spoke to someone close to a player, a highly rated player within the industry, and he went through a whole list of clubs that his client could go to, and then he came to United. And Jack, you probably heard similar, and he said wouldn't send them near United, madhouse. So there's a reputation for them young players to not go to the likes of United at this moment in time because of how much of a poison chalice it's been over the last decade. So
I just saw Scott crack the biggest smirk when you said that, Dylan.
Oh, true though.
Dylan's told me that before, and every single time he says it.
Oh, it's just a massive smile appeared across your face. Oh, for God's sake. And I mean, a club that doesn't struggle with that is Real Madrid. And a player they are looking to bring in is one of the best fullbacks, maybe one of the best players in the world, in Alphonso Davies. But it doesn't seem to be that big of a transfer. Do you see any legs in that, Jacque?
I imagine so, yeah. I think he may have with 1 or 2 years at Bayern Munich, and he's been there since he was 17 years old. He must have been there 4 or 5 years now. And as I say before, it's Real Madrid come calling, and the project they've got on offer now, just won the Champions League again. Mbappe's signed, you got Bellingham there.
Endrick as well.
Yeah, and they could, the project there is just very, very exciting. I wouldn't be surprised to see them dominate European football for 5 years to come, or I don't know, maybe, could be really like that.
The next 10.
Possibly, I'd rather than win it over Man City. I think I'm not really massive on Man City winning.
Yeah. Although I would like to see Dortmund win it the last time, just for something different. But look,
Yeah, they just didn't do it, did they? Unfortunately, they just didn't pull
No.
their in the end. Then they sacked their manager. So yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, we talk about Real Madrid dominating Europe and dominating Spain as well, but there's another really incredibly large club in Spain, in Barcelona, who have been mired with financial issues the last few years, which have been really quite well known. What do you make of that financial situation, Jack? Does it sort of limit their sort of ability to act well in the market? How do you see that?
Yeah, no, I just think for Barcelona, 2010, 2012 was just, I used to love watching them in the Champions League. They could have played some, really small Czech Republic club, whatever, in the Champions League, and just to see the players, and I always looked up to them as a club, and was just so fond of Barcelona, and it's a shame the sort of situation they're in now around the finances. I'm not saying they should be let off the hook, but I just think that the magic of Barcelona has kind of waned a bit, unfortunately, and they're not able to bring in players. I think they really liked Kamara's because they're after a number 6 to come in, but Lewandowski is kind of aging a bit now. So, and it does. I'm always kind of conscious about European football sort of becoming too Premier League dominant. I don't like that. I really like exciting games. I don't like, it's even like when Newcastle bought Sven Botman, and we bought him because he had a choice between us and AC Milan, and I was like, I'm really happy Sven Botman had come, but there's some part of me which was a bit like, oh, but AC Milan are one of the biggest clubs of all time, and it shows how bad the landscape is that an English club's able to do that. Newcastle's able to do that with AC Milan, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, this whole financial issues around, in Spain and stuff is alleviated, and Barcelona can get to sort of back to where they were. They've got Hansi Flick now, so maybe that could do something with that. I'm not sure.
Sort of feel like the landscape's changing, though. I mean, talking very, very recent examples, Elise going to Bayern Munich, Kane going to Bayern Munich as well. So there does seem to be a drift away from that Endrick going to Real Madrid. I know it is Real Madrid, but it's not the Premier League. He was linked with damn near every club here.
Yeah.
So do you see it sort of shifting a little bit now?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I think it was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. At least they're going to Bayern Munich. I think that kind of took everyone a bit of a surprise. Like I wouldn't have thought. I didn't, I mean, we were mentioned then. I knew we wouldn't go to Newcastle, but I think that we were sort of listed as an afterthought as well as Bayern Munich. He was like Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, and then it was like, and Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Newcastle, and he went there. So hopefully that is the case. I don't think it's great when you have a league that's so dominant. And I know people say, Serie A was really popular in the 90s, and La Liga dominated 10, 20 years ago. But I think the discrepancy is way too high now. It's just too high to be enjoyable in any way. And hopefully, it comes back, yeah.
I mean, we're going to expand. We'll do one last sort of reaching out a little bit further over the water to South America and looking at the Brazilian talents coming through. I mean, Esteval, I think that's how I say his name, dubbed the next Neymar, is on his way to Chelsea. Do you see any other big sort of South American, Brazilian, Argentine talents moving over to the Premier League or over Europe this summer?
Not to my, but it is interesting. There's been quite a lot. There has been a huge trend of that recently, of these sort of South American players. And there's a player, his name evades me, but he was linked to Real Madrid and some other team, but he ended up going to Benfica in January.
Marcus Leonardo.
That's it, Marcus Leonardo.
And
it has happened and it is relatively cheap as well. And Andre's another one, so it's always good to see. And that market sort of opening up and young players given the chance to go over and play football in Europe and stuff. But I got a feeling it's sort of happening a bit more than it was 5 years ago. Anyway, but maybe that's wrong.
I do think it is. Like we spoke about trends earlier. That seems to be a trend that's going. Dylan, what do you want to say?
Yeah, no, because it was only kind of, I think of in the past, it was Neymar was the biggest one. Now there seems like there's a new Neymar every week. You have Tales, you have Laurent, you have Wesley Gasova, you have Estevão, you have Endrick, you have this whole host of players in the Brazilian league that are being billed as the next big thing. And then you have Anselmino, Franco Mastantuono, definitely didn't say that right, that are linked to United. But yeah, it just seems like the South American market is expanding. I do think it started when United missed out on Enzo and Moises Caicedo. Like Enzo went for 17 million, Moises Caicedo went for 5 million. And I think every recruitment system around the world, saying that you could buy a player for 5 million and sell him for 120 and started to say, right, we need to focus more on these markets than any other market in the world.
This is purely satirical, but it does almost feel like a football managerification of
Yeah,
football transfers
absolutely.
at the moment. I mean, it's Dylan, the way you're listing off names there, I'm near certain you're an avid fan of that game.
Football, man. I was only playing. I'm literally locked in a league title battle with Liverpool here. I was pulling my eyes out about an hour ago. But look, it is what it is. But every single one of them names I mentioned, Football Manager, I know them already. So that'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
They have such high potential on Football Manager. So that'll tell you everything you need to know about their scouts.
Yeah. I think we have about 15 minutes left, and I think we have a few questions from the chat. Just do a little rapid fire.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So the first one is, how much do Ineos have to spend?
How much? Sorry,
how much do Ineos have to spend?
How much do
they have? How much can they spend this summer?
30 million.
That's quite low.
Well, plus player sales. I think it's 50, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you're looking at, I don't know how much Greenwood would go for, 30 million. Sancho maybe 20 or whatever. Then it will add up, and I think a lot of that, I don't know if Maguire's is he gonna go as well? Sort of, yeah. So 30, 40 would be my.
There was a collective silence and aghast from every United fan on screen at the moment when you said 30.
No, I'm sure you'll be spending a fair bit. I think when you get the sales and stuff, it's going to be a lot more than that. Because you've got a lot of players who can go. I think, I did see a story about Casemiro going for £70 million. I don't think it's going for 70.
Ludicrous.
But that's it. All adds up, doesn't it? Really.
I think go for around 40 or something.
I think we mentioned Casemiro earlier. Do you think he could go to Saudi Arabia? Do you think that's an option?
Is it Casemiro?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's pretty most likely for him as well, especially because I think he's on 300 or maybe a bit more. And obviously, you don't want to drop down too much. So I think Saudi Arabia for him for 2 seasons. Yeah.
Another question from the chat. So did Brighton get the best advantage of the South American space before anyone else? I'm going to add on to that. And how do you think they did that if they did?
So shrewd, aren't they? They had, I think there's another one. Was it Valentine Barros as well? They got
Barco.
Barco, that's it. Sorry,
that's a football manager name.
It is as well. Okay, yeah. Caicedo. So yeah, I don't know what Brighton is. They've almost sort of become the sort of perfect entity of football recruitment. You look at their net spend and stuff. It's just absolutely incredible, and they seem to climb up the league all the time. So I don't know, just hiring the best in recruitment and just going from there. They've just been so clever with how they've done things, and it's been a slick operation.
Yeah, I mean, they've now hired a manager who's 31 years old.
Yeah, the St. Pauli manager. Yeah, I never heard of it. I've never heard of him before. It's a very Brighton move, isn't it? A very Brighton appointment to do that.
They're data led, I think. That's what kind of boils down to it, Brian. I've done an article on them a while ago. I'm nearly sure they use the Moneyball approach. So I'd imagine, that's where they're getting most of their kind of signings like that. They probably crunch the numbers like Brad Pitt did in Moneyball and go for these players. For these players you wouldn't think of anywhere else. But look, it's done a lot for them. And I'd imagine that's why they're at the hiring a 31-year-old manager. He's only 6 years older than me, which is crazy.
Yeah, I thought Nagelsmann was young, but obviously this guy, he's younger. He's younger than me by a year. He just got them promoted, I think. So, I mean, I don't know. De Zerbi's going to Marseille, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, crazy.
So I'm quite excited to see how this guy does. To be fair, at Brian.
Yeah.
Another question from the chat from Huda. Who would replace Casemiro in a realistic sense at United?
Who would replace Casemiro at Man United in a realistic sense? I think I was going to say Bruno Guimaraes then, but that would be my sort of ideal one. But like in a realistic sense, I'm not sure really. Maybe I don't know. Edison's been mentioned from Atalanta. I suppose he's sort of a similar player, isn't he? And they're both Brazilian as well. And I think he's about 5 years younger in the same position. So maybe someone like Edison would be good. And obviously, may not have done business with Atalanta before, so there could be something there.
Some more questions we have is Xavi Simons likely to leave Paris Saint-Germain this summer? He's been a name linked to pretty much every large club in Europe over the last few years. Does he finally get his move now?
Yeah, it's not something I'm privy to with him. Unfortunately, I'd imagine he's a sensational player. Now I saw he was linked to United as well. I mean, he'd be wonderful, wouldn't he? I think he's a superb talent. But I don't know who'd go for him at this point. Possibly, I don't know who linked him to Man United, who it was, but it'd be wonderful to see him in the Premier League. Yeah,
Fabrizio did, but I think he said that he's likely to go to Bayern Munich at the minute.
Yeah, that's where, or Leipzig. It's one of those two.
Bayern Munich or Leipzig, yeah. On loan, though, for a year, though, because I don't think PSG want to let him go.
Oh, right. So you go on loan, will it be?
Yeah, I think
he'll only go on loan. I think PSG want to try and integrate him eventually. They probably see him as, like, I'm not saying he's as good as Mbappe, but they probably see him in the future as being that type of level of player. Yeah, of that ilk, yeah. So they're kind of trying to develop him for now and then in the next couple of years, probably.
Understandable.
Another question we've got is Bruno Guimaraes, as a Newcastle fan, do you see it being likely that he moves away this summer, even with his release clause not being active?
I don't know, 50-50. I don't think it's not likely. People are saying, it's over and done with now because the release clause is up. But no, I think he's just... I mean, if I was Bruno Guimaraes' agent, I'd be sort of trying to get him somewhere else. I'd try to get him to Real Madrid or, any other club. Obviously, from my perspective, it'd be bad. He's just such a quality player. He's so versatile. He can play adeptly in every position in midfield. I think he's actually better playing as a number 8 than number 6, as we've been playing him. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's over and done with by any measure. And if he wasn't this summer, he won't be here with us for longer than a year. I don't think. He's just too good.
Going from one very highly rated number 6 to another, Amadou Onana. Do you know anything about him and him moving away? There's summer links with Arsenal, United, Barcelona as well. What do you see about his situation?
Yeah, I think it sort of depends on what happens with Everton and the players, because I don't think they're going to be in a hurry to sell all their best players, and that just might be a bit of an issue. I saw he has been linked with Arsenal as well. I think tentatively even Newcastle, but obviously with Guimaraes staying, possibly not. I think he's one who's probably liked by a few clubs for his experience and the fact, maybe he can come relatively cut price because of Everton's situation, and he has 22 years old, has Premier League experience, but it's gone relatively quiet about him, hasn't it, recently? So,
yeah. So it's probably, as you said again, the Euros thing, nothing happens until after the Euros. So I'd say as soon as Belgium go out, which, look, it's going to be quite soon, you'll hear more about him, I'd say, definitely. And a lot of players. It's the way it works, probably in the market. But
yeah.
A complete guess from you here, Jack. Who do you think will be the surprise transfer of this summer's transfer window?
Oh, God. The surprise transfer.
Put your hat in the ring. If it's even a wild guess, even if it's a gut feeling, what are we thinking?
Wild transfer of this window. I wonder if it would be something like maybe like Andy Robertson to the Saudi Pro League or something like that.
Could see it happening.
Yeah.
32, I guess. Is he this year? 32.
Yeah. And if Liverpool get a left centre back,
I don't know about that.
Play left back.
He's always complaining in media about how his skin doesn't like the sun. So.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay. Maybe not.
You can wear a hat.
Or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's sort of one of the stuff going to my head. I'm sure there will be some craziness this summer. I think there's going to be, there's always a bit of craziness that happens, and it gets a bit. I think it sort of starts to get a bit more crazy, doesn't it? So
it's why I love it. It's transfer
Andy Robertson and the Saudi Pro League.
Yeah. Speaking about utter craziness, let's have a little look at Manchester City, a club we pretty much avoided this entire stream, this entire podcast. But what will happen, do you think, with the 115 Manchester City charges?
Oh, bloody hell, what do I think? I honestly don't know. It's something I saw in the headlines. I haven't read too much into it. I just hope whatever it is concluded swiftly. On the balance of probabilities, you have that many charges, then I'd imagine there's going to be some fallout. I cannot imagine being innocent for that much. I honestly don't know. But whatever it is, I hope it's cleared up soon. And yeah, I don't know. I think, we just want it sort of to be over with. And I can understand why clubs like Everton might be annoyed for getting points. I know it's a separate thing technically, but you can see why clubs like Everton will get annoyed because their things dealt with swiftly, but the Champions, it's going to take up to 2025, and now they're trying to sue the Premier League, and it's just going to turn very, very nasty. So I don't know though. It's a long way of going about saying I don't know.
Yeah, and to sort of talk about players who are always involved in the transfer window, names always mentioned, Alvaro Morata. Do you think he gets another move this summer with one of the best agents seemingly on the planet?
Yeah, he'll go to another. It's Juventus, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid. He's been with all the Real Madrid. Been with all the top players. With him, I don't know what his situation. With him in particular, as an example, I don't know. But yeah, perhaps he'd go to another elite side and find his way there. He's been very. Is it Morata you mentioned then?
Morata,
yeah. I think he scored for Spain in the opening game. But yeah,
he did. Yeah. Baller. He's a good player.
He's a bad player. So not sure with him really.
Yeah, and to sort of talk about those players, who do you think is the most sort of constantly linked player you've ever sort of come across, or ever been talked to you about?
Jonathan David has been quite.
Yeah.
Torpedo as well.
Week.
I expected that.
Yeah, Jonathan David.
He's been linked every week for the last 3 years.
It's longer than that, Dylan.
Yeah, probably, to be honest. And he's finally getting a move, probably. So.
And he's finally getting a move from Ornstein going to Chelsea, yeah. Jean-Claire Torpedo as well is in the media a lot. There's probably some other examples there, but those are the ones that sort of spring off the top of my head, really. I'm sure there's other ones as well, but those two are just forever being linked, but just nothing ever happens.
We're going to end it on a topic that hasn't really been discussed, but it's been sort of a forefront thing this transfer window. Arsenal's number 9 situation. Sergio Gavisi is the main man sort of linked to them at the moment. Who do you think is going to end up being Arsenal's number 9 signing?
There's been stuff about them not getting it and just sort of focusing on the central midfield position and just sort of keeping Havertz there. Šeško staying now, obviously. It could be something like maybe a Jonathan David. They'll come in as well. But then they've forever been linked with strikers this season. Arsenal. I think their best bet would have been Isaac. I think he's just an incredible player. He's too good for us, to be honest. But again, I just don't think we're going to sell him for unless they come in with 120 million or something like that. So it just may be that they wait around a little bit. There's been Maximilian Beria. Who's sort of been linked and is quite a low release clause. I think Sky Germany said today it's only 30 million euros for his release clause, but it's again does that really translate into the Premier League? Boniface is another one who may, there's quite a few good strikers in the Bundesliga who come for a relatively low price, but I'm not sure with Arsenal, honestly.
Oh, no, it's certainly been quite a comprehensive transfer deep dive on every club across the world, even stretching all the way from South America right to Newcastle, where Jacque supports. But I do want to thank Jacque for coming on the stream. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all your insight. Glad to have you on again anytime. I want to thank Scott and Dylan for joining me. I really appreciate you guys showing up. Alfie as well, the voice in the sky. Not really had much of a presence, but always a great man to have on the show. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like. See you next time.